Welcome to Bloom. Be inspired to be an empowered version of yourself and create meaningful change in the world. And my guest today is Nathan Gold, who I have read as a testimonial in your book, which we're going to talk about a lot. It said, Nathan Gold is a black belt pitch coach. And since I'm a martial artist as well, I just love that. And I might actually add as a paraphrase that you're also a black belt high stakes speaker coach and a keynote speaker, a successful one yourself.
Yes.
And
Thank you for the introduction.
Yes, you're most welcome. And I've really been looking forward to this because you are just the mentor and person many of us have been looking for. Because stage fright is a huge problem for many highly sensitive people, and particularly during the process of pursuing their ambitions. So this is about change leadership, and so many times that it seems like an insurmountable thing. This, I have to go on stage, I have to speak on Zoom, I actually need to use my voice. So over to you. I mean, there's so many things to say about you.
Yes, thank you.
So no, I'm not going to give it over to you. I'm going to keep to myself for the moment and just introduce you that way as well. That you published this book, 2019, Harness Your Speaking Anxiety, which you very generously offer on your homepage for free. And I think that is a wonderful thing for you to do.
Thank you. Thank you. I really didn't
You,
write it to sell it. I wrote it to give it away because people always ask, how do you deal with your nerves? So rather than, I could have charged for the book, but it's not the point. The point was to help people at a level that affects every one of us, which is where you're taking this conversation right now.
Yes, where I'm taking this conversation, but having talked to you many times now, I think that this aspect of giving things away with a full heart is a very big part of your personality. I remember you said once, give away or teach and, be who you are without always expecting something in return, which this book is a wonderful example of.
Mm-hmm.
And you won the Demo God Award twice,
Yes.
in 2000 and 2005.
Yes.
And you've helped a lot of very important people get up on stage, be successful on stage. And one thing that I really like is the way you help people to go on TED shows or TEDx shows, which again, as I learned from you as a highly sensitive change leader, is a very important step to get out there and be known in that medium. So what I'll do now, I'll hand it over to you. And,
Okay.
If you would like to sort of add something about your vita that is important for us to know.
Oh, based on what you just said, the only thing I can add really to let people know a little more about who I am is that I do have a degree that is called a multidisciplinary degree that I took in school that I parlayed into my career of coaching and presenting many, 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 many years later. But I've been in technology my whole career, got laid off 3 times. And here in the US, when you get laid off, it's almost no big deal, but it happens on a fairly regular basis. And then when I turned 50, and that was the 3rd time I got laid off, I was working for SanDisk, and I looked at the 4 walls when I got home, and I decided I'm never going to let that happen to me again.
Mm.
Which means you have 2 choices, Nathan. One is to retire, not ready, I was only 50, having too much fun, or become a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. And so that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. People have always enjoyed my workshops, my trainings, my classes, my talks throughout my career. I was generally the guy that the salespeople loved taking on calls because I knew how to demo products in a persuasive way, not in an informative way, which so many people do when they're demoing products. And then I was also asked to do keynotes at our conferences all the time. So I had this opportunity to not only hone the skill in real life situations, but I also got a chance to develop as a person because it was not easy. I mean, presenting is not easy for anyone, and the more you do it, like I was doing in my career, I always found myself in positions where I got to present or communicate. So I had the on the job experience for most of my career. And then when I decided, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? What can I do to help people and get paid for doing it?
Hmm.
So people always told me my demos are outstanding. So I started out doing a demo business. And you mentioned the Demo God Awards. That was from a conference called Demo. And they had 70, 80 people come up on stage for 5 minutes to demo their products at a very early stage. And I happened to be working for two different companies that went up on that stage, and we won the Demo God Award, which is given to like 5 to 7 people out of the whole thing for doing an outstanding, amazing uh, demo. So that's where
Hmm.
that came from. Anyway, long story short, fast forward to after teaching people demos just didn't work because I was a nobody and there was already an 800-pound gorilla on the block. There was
Okay.
another solopreneur who had been doing it for probably 8, 10 years already, had a book this thick on it, and he was like the guy everybody went to. So I decided, okay, well, do I want to compete with him? He's like right over here where I live. He's like 10 miles from where I live. So he's in Silicon Valley too.
Hmm.
So I thought, nah, I don't think I want to compete with him. So that's when I met my first entrepreneur at an event that asked me if I could help him present or pitch to investors. And the last 16 or 15 years have 80% helping entrepreneurs present and pitch to investors to raise money or to customers to close deals. And the other 20-25% of what I do is corporate work now, because so many entrepreneurs from many years ago are now working for companies like LinkedIn and others. And they call and say, hey, can you do what you did for me when I was an entrepreneur now for my team here at X company or whichever? Not X as in the Twitter company, but and that's me. And the TED Talks, by the way, uh, that is one of my favorite things to coach people for because I get to live the dream of not charging people. I give it back to anyone that calls for a TED or a TEDx coaching. There are coaches all over the world that charge big, big
Yes,
money to
I
get you.
know. Hmm.
And I don't charge for that because I feel like that's my way to give back. If you're walking on that red carpet, whether it's TED, which is once a year, where Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Al Gore are all sitting in the front row, or it's a TEDx talk, it's an amazingly powerful opportunity to get your ideas out to the world. And it's also one of the most nerve wracking situations you would ever find yourself in. Could you imagine walking out onto the red dot knowing that Bill Gates is in the front row?
Maybe not that easy, though. To me, it makes no difference whether it's Bill Gates or Jack Joe or whatever you call it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I think it's intimidating, of course, because
right.
what the stakes are.
I do want to just touch on one thing you said in the opening where anxiety and speaking, the fear of speaking and public speaking, it affects every single one of us. No one is born with the ability to stand up in front of a crowd and edutain them, keep them captivated for any number of minutes or hours. None of us are born with that. So, my recommendation to everyone is always, no matter how stressful speaking is for you, take small steps to conquering it. Take those small steps. Put yourself in a situation where, maybe at a party, somebody's asking a question and you've got a great story to share, but normally you wouldn't because you're too nervous. Well,
Hmm.
take the step forward. If you don't deal with the fear and the anxiety that we all have, it will never turn into anything positive for you. Most people have a negative impression of what speaking anxiety is. Probably 95% of the people I talk to see speaking anxiety as a negative, as a dark cloud over them. In my book, speaking anxiety that I feel, it's like the sun is shining. I can't wait to get out in front of these people and talk to them because I want to help them. But I'm nervous. Are they going to like me? Is my hair all? Am I going to trip on the stage? Am I going to remember what I say? Are my slides going to work?
Yeah.
We all have that. But the more you do it, I wouldn't say the easier it gets. It just becomes, you get more comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that is definitely a very important way of looking at it. And what it reminds me of is that, in psychology, you have this saying that fear and excitement are the same coin. It's just another side of the coin. And if you can, and I think that's really important here also for our discussion, because if we are really passionate about our message, about what we want to lead in, what the area is where we want to change things, it can help us, overcome that anxiety because we are engaged and because we can say, I'm actually really excited about this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I really like that. On the other hand, I think there are instances where there's so much trauma connected with it that you actually one would need to go and get help. Just to take myself as an example, I remember sitting in my, I'm a music therapist, and I was sitting in a group, for the one of the sessions, and I was asked something by a professor that was very passive aggressive towards me, and I literally couldn't speak. I
Mm.
had so much breath on my voice, being a singer, I was livid inside. I could not speak because that just nothing would come out. So the charge that was on that was so big that I actually needed to go and do some work on it in order to do that, or even to sit here now and do these podcasts. If you had asked me 5 years ago that I was going to do this, I would have laughed at you. Sure not. I'd get up on stage and sing, but speak.
Well, Yola, when that happens, when someone tries to dress you down,
Mm.
and I get this quite a bit, especially from women who I'm coaching, that are being dressed down or passive aggressive attacks by old gray white haired, gray haired men who are trying to show their stripes.
Mm.
And you're right. Sometimes you get so tied up inside that you can't even think of a good response. My recommendation, whenever that happens, is don't come up with a response. Don't expect yourself to come up with a response when you're put
Mm.
in that situation, especially when it's very rare, very uncommon. How do you respond to something that you hear once a year, maybe, or maybe never before? The trick, I believe, can work to soften the pressure on you a little bit. And I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not trained in any of this stuff, but this is what I would do. Ask a question back to that person.
Mm.
Don't try to answer the question, just ask a question about what they just said. What makes you say that? Where did that come from? I'm not sure I really understand what you mean. Can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah.
What specifically are you meaning there? Blah, blah. You're the worst in the world. What? The worst? Come on. I mean, there's ways that you can sort of push back on bullies by taking them to the next step and the next step, and eventually they run out of speed.
So
Or,
that's like taking your power back, right?
yes, that's exactly. You need to take your power back, man or woman. Sorry
Mm.
for the
I'm,
the
I'm
two
easy.
genders, but Look at the color of my hair. I'm having a little trouble
That's
adjusting to all of this.
I would love, and I'm going to state that now, to leave gender out of this sort of gendering out of the discussion. We're just human beings talking to each other.
Yes,
Let's
we are.
leave it
Yes,
at
we are.
that.
So
Let's
ask a
relax.
question can work so beautifully because that usually takes the wind out of the sails of the person, or they get a little more angry, or they get everything out on the table, and then you realize, oh, the reason they said that is because of the fourth thing they just said. You know, sometimes people just snap out at you, but they're not giving you the real reason.
Yeah.
So
No.
that's my suggestion. Ask a question.
Yeah.
You can always ask it. What? What do you mean by that? I mean, you don't even have to practice that response.
I wish I had known that then.
So you like the idea?
I love the idea.
Okay.
And I hope
And
our
it also
listeners.
gives you time to think.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can think while they're talking back to you. They may give you more data that you need in order to come up with the best answer you can come up with.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So thanks for that advice.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Q&A is a big part of pitching and presenting. You know, many people spend all their time practicing the presentation. And then I had a question, and they ask the question that completely deflates the enthusiasm in the person that was just talking, because it's the worst question you could ever get. And so one of the things that I do very, very much is emphasize the fact that once you got the presentation and your pitch down, if there's Q&A following, you need to spend an equal amount of time preparing for Q&A as you did on your presentation or pitch.
So that's actually a good way to, I think the English word is segue into something else that I thought
Sure.
is really important about your message and the way you work. And we'll get back to the performance anxiety, but I'd like to sort of go to the other side of the coin for a moment. And you have a quote in your book that I really love. And it says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Like, I never forgot how that professor made me feel. Was female, by the way. This quote is by Maya Angelou, whom I adore. And I'd like you to expand on this a little bit, because I know it's very much the foundation of your work on how you help people and support them.
Sure. Well, in general, the people I'm helping are looking to persuade their audiences to give them something. And generally what that is more time. Okay? So if you're going to try to persuade an audience, if you're informing an audience, I actually don't spend much time helping people inform audiences. It's kind of a little boring to me. But when you're trying to persuade an audience to take some form of action, maybe just to go to your website or something like that, it's really important that you first, hang on a second, I just lost my train of thought here.
Your train of thought is how people make them feel. I think the feeling aspect is so important.
That's right. Yeah. So when you're trying to persuade your audience to take action, part of that persuasion process is making sure they feel the way you feel about what you're talking about. And you can't force people to feel that, right? You can't force them to feel your passion. You have to demonstrate it in the way you speak, in the way you interact with your audiences, in the way you respond to a question you get, in the way you respond to an interruption that somebody has just thrown at you. And when they feel the way you feel when you're done, whether it's my topic and your audience is feeling a little excitement, hopefully, and an inspiration about the idea that speaking can be an amazing part of your life, they feel that. And hopefully they're feeling that because of the way I'm speaking and communicating to you. The voice I'm using right now with you is not the voice I use when I'm sitting at dinner with friends. Okay? We all have these different voices, and the one I'm using with you and your audience right now is the voice of enthusiasm. And so when you make people feel something, you've done your job. They'll never forget you.
Yeah, and they will not forget your project, and they might want to actually support your project, because I always find if somebody just gives me information and then they say, "I'm really passionate about this," I'm like, no, thank you. I can't feel it, because we are feeling beings, right?
We are.
Most of the message comes across through prosody, so the way we speak, the way we behave. And, you see me speak with my whole body. If I would just sort of sit here with a mask, it's just not the same thing.
That's right.
So um,
That is so true.
I think fear many times keeps us from going to that feeling place because we are so busy
Mm.
trying to tame our body. And I think
Mm.
that might be a good place to go to something you describe in your book as well, and that is the blue zone and the red zone of
Mm.
anxiety. Because I think this is a wonderful way of describing that, either being in that freeze or overdrive, where that's what you actually communicate, or to use that energy and go into the excitement, which then ignites other people.
Hmm. Yeah, I like to use that thermometer because there's a range of speaking anxiety, and I only speak about that. I'm not normal life anxiety, that's quite different. But speaking anxiety is where I go. I'm not a medical doctor. I can't prescribe beta blockers or anything like that for people that might need them. But um,
But how would you sort of, I mean, when I read that, it was also a beautiful
yeah,
picture and metaphor
yes,
because of, color blue is more cold. I love
that's
blue,
right.
but it's not. And red has this sort of
Yeah, yeah,
feeling to it. Maybe we could go a little bit into the
yep,
symptoms, because I know
sure.
you have a list of symptoms that we could associate with either
Mm.
side. Like if you have a rapid heartbeat, it could be because you're excited, or it could be because you're afraid. So let's talk a little bit about that list of symptoms.
Hmm. When your body is reacting to that speaking anxiety, you just said it. You have the same effect, whether it's a positive or it's a negative feeling towards that speaking anxiety.
Hmm.
So, as humans, all we need to do is get some skills that we can use so that when we find ourselves on the edge of freezing up, we know what to do. Versus on the other side, the more the red zone is where I find myself. I'm on fire. I'm excited. I can't wait to get out there and talk to the people about my topic. Versus the other side where I'm frozen or I'm deciding whether I got to get out of here, the fight, flight, freeze
Hmm.
moments. We all need skills to help us in any of those situations because remember, I'm not I'm not anything special. I'm a human also. And if I was to walk out on that TED stage, my heart would be pounding out of my chest. And it wouldn't be from excitement. It would be from fear that I have to deal with walking out onto that stage. I'm convinced of it. I'd be fearful, but I would be so prepared that I would know what to do in my head to get myself in the right state of mind. So when I do walk out there, I can trust myself.
Would
And
you
so this,
say? Hmm? I think
it,
that's really, really beautiful. I would just like to maybe, because we talked about the body as well a lot. And my take is more bottom up instead of mind to body. So to me, it would seem that it's not just being prepared on the mental plane, but it's also having tools to um, not get overwhelmed by your bodily signals, to sort of,
yes,
categorize them maybe a little bit differently, or to actually have experience and done it often enough. Like
right.
what happens to me when I get really nervous, I now trust the fact that it will calm down once I'm engaged in what I want to actually say.
That's the beginning, to trust that it will. And if you don't have something you can do in between when you calm down or when you get to that point, and now you might not get to that point.
Yeah, that's
Your
right.
body might say, hey, I'm out of here. I'm feeling too nauseous. I'm leaving. Flight. I'll share a story with you
Mm.
that will illustrate no matter who you are, this fight, flight, and freeze will affect all of us in different ways. And I've spent thousands of hours in front of people. About 10 years ago, I was asked to do a recording for the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City on my topic. I show up in Kansas City. They say, bring a couple of different jackets, some different ties, a few shirts, because the crew will want to, you know, make you look good on
Mm.
camera. So I do everything. I show up, and I get picked up. They drive me over to the Kansas City Performing Arts Center. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Why am I here? I mean, it's just
Mm.
little old me. Sure enough, the person picked me up. They took me in. We walked down this hallway, and I hear all this noise in the big room where famous people, famous singers and concerts are done. And I thought, I'm just going to be off in a little left-hand corner room. It's just me. I'm just getting recorded. Nope.
No, sir.
You're in there, Mr. Gold. I walk in this room, Yole, and I have to tell you, I was scared to death.
Mm.
So much that I almost didn't even have time to deal with it. So here's a quick
Mhm.
recap of what happened. They said, ladies and gentlemen, and there were 30 people in the room, lights, cameras. I mean, this was a television setup studio. Two cameras, oh my God. I'm looking around like this is, hey, everybody quiet down. The talent is here. Nathan, come on up on the stage and let me introduce you to everybody. And could you stand on that X right there? Because my camera people want to get a good picture of you before we send you off with Sharon to get ready for filming. Sure, whatever you guys want. I stand there and Yoli, I had a blue shirt on with an undershirt.
That was,
It turned dark blue within minutes because
yeah.
I realized I am out of my comfort zone so far that it's freaking me out. I mean, it is literally making me turn white. I could not get control of my feelings. I had never had something like that happen before. And I was about to just say to the crew, hey, listen, guys, I am feeling terribly sick right now, and I'm going back to the hotel. I apologize, but I just can't handle it.
Mm.
Take care. Just as I was about to say that, this woman walked over to me named Sharon. I mentioned her a moment ago, and Sharon said, Nathan, come on, let's go. She grabbed me by the arm. She stuffed a drink in my face and said, drink this water and come with me. We went out to the hallway and she said, I'm your makeup artist. I said, what? A makeup artist? She said, yep, I'm here to make sure you look good on camera, but I also have another skill I want to help you with. And that is I want to make sure you go back in that room.
Isn't
I
that an
could,
empath for you? A highly sensitive empath that
she
knew
could
what was
see.
going on and just grounded you, right?
She could see I was turning white. I was losing color in my face. She sat me down on a bench and she taught me a skill that I have used several times since, but I teach everyone how to do it. And it's so simple. She literally taught me what's called combat or tactical breathing
Mm.
or box breathing. There's three, I've heard it called three things. They're all pretty much the same. We don't have to teach your audience right now how to do it. Just look it up. But basically, she said, lay down on the bench and follow my instructions. And she took me through tactical breathing, as she called it, for about 2 minutes. And then she said, open your eyes. How do you feel? I said, I feel great. Let's go back
Oh,
in the
I'd
room.
love it for you to take us through it. It only takes 2 minutes.
Oh, it doesn't even take 2 minutes. I'll take you through one round and then you repeat it as many times as you need to. So
Mm.
it's really there are multiple methods, but let's just pick one. So we'll call it tactical breathing. It's a series of you breathe in for some number of seconds and hold it for the same number of seconds.
Mm.
Then you breathe out for those same number of seconds, hold it for that number of seconds, and repeat. That's it.
Would
Just
you suggest
repeat.
we would start with a count of 4 or 6?
Four. Well, four probably is good. You don't have to hold your breath long. It's taking control of an involuntary part of our humanness that is very screwed up when we're nervous. The first
Yeah.
thing to go when we get nervous is our breathing. We start doing clavicle breathing. And you don't know it until you go. And sometimes we stop breathing until we go. Whew,
Yeah,
whoa, like we've all had that experience.
of
And
course, of course.
the tactical breathing will help you get through that, or box breathing. It'll get you through that. But here's the rub. Don't wait until you need it to learn it. I tell people, go look up box breathing or tactical breathing right now, or just take what I just, and do it before you fall asleep. Do it when you wake up in the mornings. And then it becomes sort of a tool you can use when you find yourself walking up on stage and you realize, oh, I'm getting a little out of my comfort zone. Start doing your box breathing.
Mm,
And in most cases, it will bring you back to earth. They teach this in the military, first responders, police, fire, anyone that has the situation where they might be on their own and something messes their senses up and they need to get themselves back to earth. They all learn tactical or combat breathing.
mm.
Because, I mean, imagine yourself in some of these situations where military people find themselves in it. When was the last time you heard a bomb explode?
Thankfully not.
Uh huh.
Mm-hmm.
And so practicing that tool and then using it before you have to go up on stage or backstage or before you walk up in front of the camera, go sit in a
Mm,
corner or stand. If you do it standing, you must hold on to something because sometimes we get a little lightheaded
mm.
when you're
Sure,
doing that. A little
that
bit
makes sense.
lightheaded, but
Mm.
sitting or lying down, that's the one tool that generally should work. If not, if you have somebody around you, you can get there faster by just getting a hug.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously, if somebody you
Yeah,
know is next to
seriously.
you and you're feeling nervous, just ask for a hug. You can hug
Mm,
yourself too. You can hug yourself. It
mm.
feels almost the same.
Yeah, that's the biologist and psychologist in me is really happy about what you mentioned because it is just really that um, the reconnecting with what we call the ventral vagal system, which is a very,
Mm,
very good way to reconnect with confidence and being loved and accepted. And that's the quickest way for our nervous system to calm down. Um, so we could expand on this, but I want to sort of go slightly back to one point about
yes.
your story, and that is that the reason why that happened is because the other side did not prepare you properly. And you said at the beginning of this conversation, you said preparation is so important. You might
Mm-hmm.
not have overreacted that way if they had actually told you. So that
Yes.
is maybe also an advice to say if you're going to speak somewhere, know the location, know who's going to be there.
Mm.
If you're doing it online, have your technical stuff sorted out so you don't freak out because, like I did at the beginning of our conversation, because the second screen didn't do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that cannot be stressed enough. Don't be a perfectionist about preparation, but preparation is something that allows your nervous system to relax as well.
I agree. I take that as my mistake because I could have asked more questions. And I normally did. In most of my gigs, when people want to bring me in, I ask for pictures of the room so I can see what I'm up against or what situation I might want to change based on my normal pattern of doing things in a room, if there's an L shape or whatever, where the video is, where the lights are going to be. But in that particular case, I did not ask. I just didn't ask. Oh, that's on me. But also, they could have given me better prep in saying, we're bringing a professional television crew that's done documentaries on World War II and the Revolution. What? A real TV crew? That would have made me probably nervous for weeks because I knew for a month I was going. So actually, I might not have wanted to know that it was that professional crew, especially since I didn't know box breathing at the time.
Okay. Yeah, but it was a sign of appreciation of the other side that they
Yeah,
valued you,
yeah,
to bring a team of that caliber.
yeah. It
But
was
again, I
it
want
was
to stress that point, especially for neurosensitives, that
mm,
we get overwhelmed by too much input. Yeah, too
yes.
many people here, too many lights, too big a room. And that's why I think it is actually paramount to do that preparation. And if you had been nervous for weeks before, you could have gone out to get help for that and maybe be better prepared.
Indeed. Indeed.
So I'm undecisive now which way to go, whether I'd love to have a little bit of a conversation on the challenge of uncertainty, because this is what we find ourselves. And if you get up and that relates to the how much is preparation and how much uncertainty do you actually need to be able to accept um, in situations in order for something creative to come up. Like in these conversations, I mean, we both prepared, but we still need to leave some room for something spontaneous to happen, or a certain amount of uncertainty. What would you say is your take, your experience with uncertainty?
Most people don't like it.
Mm.
They want to be certain of what's going to happen, especially in things like a podcast or a workshop. You know, you put your questions together, you put your exercises together, and you expect things to go the way you've been imagining them in your mind, whether it's the first time you're doing it or the 100th time you're doing it. And I would go straight to the bottom line here, and that is I used to be like that.
All right.
I used to be like that. Prepare, over prepare, make sure you have more than you'll be able to cover. And I never was able to cover everything, and nobody even knew it.
Yeah, I know.
Uh, but what I was missing, and I discovered maybe 6, 7 years ago, was without some uncertainty in a workshop or in a talk, it's like almost nothing spontaneous can really happen unless you sort of let it happen in those little areas that you have this little section here. So I moved more towards open conversation with my audiences and encouraging them to challenge me or ask me a question, or I force them to do things so they experience something easy. I don't put people under pressure, but I've used some of the improv exercises that people
Mm.
have loved because it got them gave them a chance to go from I thought I knew what was going to happen in this workshop, but you're just making me feel real nervous, because remember, it's not just me feeling the uncertainty, it's also my audience.
Mm.
And if the audience feels uncertain about what's going to happen, that could be a negative or positive experience. For me, I work very hard to make sure that if anybody's uncertain about what's going to happen here, they're excited. It's like they
Yeah.
can't wait to see what's
Mm.
going to happen here.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it more interesting. It's
Mm-hmm.
like salt for in a good meal, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's
Uh,
what Jan Keck, who you know, calls an ice melter.
mm,
I do many ice melters, some that he doesn't use. I've picked up on one or two that he uses. And I call them ice melters because that's what he calls them, instead of icebreakers, which nobody really like. Okay, let's start with an icebreaker. So, oh no, why did I come here today? But I do them without people even knowing.
mm,
And then they wonder, wow, what else is going to happen here today? For example, we're online right now, you and me, right? And I've been online for 4.5 years now since the pandemic, and I love it. I can do so many more things with my camera and with you online than I could ever have done in person. So there's two ice melters here in my picture. The one is this bug,
mm.
and the other
Right.
is my logo over here that I'm sitting behind.
For those who are only listening to the audio, it's the other one is
Ah,
the time, the temperature, and the place where you are.
exactly.
Mm.
So how do you ice break a conversation with people online? Hey, where are you from? It's like you don't have to ask that question when you're online with me, because people see the Fremont and they go, "Oh, I noticed you're in Fremont." Okay,
Mm.
yes, I am. Isn't Tesla like right down the block from where you? Yes, Tesla is the factory right there. See how that can, and the logo. Sometimes people say, Nathan, I've never seen anybody sitting behind their logo. How do you do that? Right? And it's not to brag, it's just that you want to do things that are just a little bit outside of what people expect, and that will generally keep their attention longer. And the more you do that during a 1 hour talk, a 3 hour talk, or longer, I could tell you very simply, I've had people after 3 hours of workshops online with me,
Mhm.
they get two breaks, two significant breaks, but most people respond at the end by saying, When I was coming to this 3-hour virtual workshop, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to find an excuse to get out. And the time went by so fast.
Exactly, because there was room for creativity, for breath, for something to happen that was not expected.
Yes.
And we have
Uncertainty is key. And uncertainty always happens. I forgot the moral of my story. Uncertainty can happen mostly during feedback from your audience or exercises or you asking them questions. But if you're just blah, 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 it's always quite certain, because you know what you want to say and where you want to take. But the minute you get people to interact with you, the uncertainty comes in. And it's a good thing because now you know what they're thinking, what's important to them. You can stop halfway through a talk and say, am I resonating with you all on this? What's the one thing I just said in the last half hour that you were going to take home? You? Yeah, come on. And or worst case, nobody raises their hand and says, okay, so now it's really uncertain. Should I continue or
mm,
should I stop and give them a chance to direct me to something else? And that's
so we're
important.
back to the feeling, how do you make people feel, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
back to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is, and that's what you help people do so brilliantly, is you're not born with that. I mean, some of us maybe are born with more improvisation talent than others, or joy of it, but it's something you can practice. It is something you can learn, and you can practice it during your day. You can practice it with friends and in other situations. And again, so that you have a certain kind of trust and certainty in uncertainty, that you actually are excited about it rather than afraid.
I recommend, believe it or not, the most effective way to get comfortable with uncertainty is to take improv classes.
Absolutely.
Not to become a comedian or to become funny, but just 3 years ago, I took an 8-week, 2 hours, 1 day a week course from this guy up in Seattle, and I learned more than I've ever learned in improv, and it's affected me today. Even today,
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
people that knew me before said, "Nathan, there's something different about you. What are you doing?" And it was simply I was interacting more, even if I wasn't speaking.
Yeah.
People just sit there like this.
Oh God. Yes.
I just couldn't sit around anymore. I had to move. I had to, yeah, that's good, using, and I think the improv is probably the best way. You can do it online. You don't even have to go out, get in your car, drive to the place, walk in, and actually go in. There's like 19 different places you can turn around to go home. But online,
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't, because I love it. And you see my piano, I love improvisation. It's something,
oh,
I feed off basically. But it was a different thing to do that as an
yeah,
artist and
yeah.
to do that in everyday life, or as a coach. And it was the moment when I started to merge these two instincts, whatever you
Mm-hmm,
want to call them,
mm-hmm,
that things really started to happen.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
And uncertainty is something that creeps into every exercise in improv, every single one of them. It's absolutely like, oh, uh, okay.
Yeah, but it's the wonderful one. Once you
Yeah.
start tasting it, people never want to stop, because it's like being a child. It's like playing. Finally, I can hand away the script and,
Yes.
be creative, which
Yes.
for neurosensitives is
Yes.
so important. Let that
Yes.
loose. Let
Yes.
that. And I would just like to bring in that picture that you have in your book about that. You said the black stallion
Oh,
metaphor, where you have this beautiful picture of this wonderful, powerful horse, and you say that is your speaking anxiety. And in a way, again, we're the sides of the coin, where actually that joy of improvisation and uncertainty and delivering what you have to say is the black stallion, but we misinterpret it as anxiety and fear.
agreed. Absolutely. I don't
Mm.
believe there's anybody watching or listening to this that hasn't seen an amazingly powerful horse running in a field somewhere.
Mm.
Whether it's a black stallion, which is kind of my favorite, it could be a white stallion, a painted stallion, any, amazingly powerful animal just running free in a big field. that's your anxiety for most people. Speaking anxiety is just running free. But when you use the harness on the animal and you train it, it will do what you want. And then when you're done, you let the harness off and let it go back out. And
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
metaphor that I like people to think about, because
Mm.
that stallion is going to be with you until your last breath. If not, you probably shouldn't do whatever it is you're about to do. I mean, if you're not nervous, either positively or negatively, doing something way outside your comfort zone, like speaking to an audience of 500 people for the first time, I wouldn't do it. You're not ready. If people tell me they're not nervous, I call BS. You're not nervous. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I also really like that, maybe the metaphor I also see in it, that it is not just fear, it's also the potential and the power
Yeah.
that you actually have, that we as neurosensitives for the most part suppress, because we've learned to suppress it.
Mm,
We've learned to suppress our um, idiosyncratic way of expressing ourselves in order to fit in. And to me,
mm,
that stallion also is that beauty and power of you, what you want to change, where you want to lead, and who you are, that turns into anxiety because we've suppressed it.
mm,
So I so see that picture in there, not just, thank you for saying the way you see it. And I would
mm.
say it could be both.
I see it. I could see it that way for sure.
Mm.
And I just want to add that when we are in this state of mind, whether positive, negative, whatever, I don't like to use the word passion, because if you're
Mm.
trying to express your passion for whatever it is you're talking about, personally, I think passion is hard to define, and it's hard to spot genuine passion as opposed to acted.
Mm.
So I stay away from that word because it's too heavy. And I look for and use the word enthusiasm. If you can transfer your enthusiasm, which could be called passion, but enthusiasm, I don't think there's anybody listening or watching that wouldn't say, oh, that guy over there, he is being genuinely enthusiastic about that topic. Or we know as humans, we have that sixth sense. They're being a little disingenuous. That feels, it sounds, it just doesn't sound real. But when you hit your genuine enthusiastic self, it hopefully will allow you to come out a little bit more with who you are, because we love to be around people who show and demonstrate enthusiasm.
Absolutely,
Who
such an
doesn't
important
like
point.
enthusiasm? Genuine, not this BS kind of rah rah, but genuine love for whatever they're talking about, even if you don't like what they're talking about. But the topic's coming across. I feel what they feel, even though I won't buy it. I won't invest in it, maybe, but I feel what they feel, and you can't stop people from feeling something. Right?
No,
So
and
you're in control. You're the conductor of the orchestra, and your audience is the orchestra. How do you want them to feel? If you just go up there and do the blah blah, they're gonna feel bored. You want them to feel bored? You want them to feel what?
so this is an invitation to whoever is listening to, one, allow yourself to feel, and two, communicate it, dare it, because it's
Mm,
going to do things for you you can't even imagine. It's going to bring things into your life that you dream of.
yes,
Yes.
yes. People can't hear the dreams in your head. They have to
Nope.
come out in some way, shape, or form, and storytelling is the way to do it. So you just don't go up there and blah blah blah. Storytelling and learning how to tell better stories, whether it's a one sentence story or a 20-minute story, that's the key to helping manage my anxiety on stage, because people love stories, especially
Mm.
ones that are concise. They have ups and downs, and they're purposeful in the way I'm using them. They illustrate the point I'm trying to make. And so I would recommend that to your audiences. Just learn everything you can learn about storytelling and more.
Great point. Thank you. And that leads me to my last question. It's always my last question in the podcast, and that is, what did I not ask you that you either think is important, that we missed, or that I have not asked you? So
Okay,
I'm
that's
excited
easy.
to hear.
That's a real easy one. We haven't gotten into one of the most important things that I have come to find as a way to manage or harness
Mhm.
your speaking anxiety. So
Please.
we talked briefly about breathing. That's number
Mm.
one. Find that breathing, take control of your breathing. That's number one. Because if you don't do that, nothing else I can tell you is going to work. Period. Same thing for sports. Same thing for anything. Breathing.
Mm.
Number two, wait for it, your posture.
Mhm.
Sitting or standing, you have control over your posture in most cases. And if you um, slump like I do when I'm not paying attention, I never slump on stage, ever. I'm doing things with my body to make sure I'm standing tall, giving my body a chance to breathe more better. Okay? So
And you
posture.
give yourself the feedback, you give yourself feedback of confidence, because when we
That's
stand
right.
upright, we
That's
can
right.
breathe better, and we feel confident, and we look confident to other people, who then will actually listen to us.
Right.
So
And
that's a very important point. Thank you for mentioning that.
there's one more. It's the magic.
Mm.
There's always three, right? This is the magic. After you control your breathing and after you've got your posture all set up, the next thing is we have to drown out the inner voice.
Mm.
Like, drown it out completely. Don't even try to be positive about whatever you're talking to yourself about. But we've got these two voices going on all the time. We need
Mm.
to drown it out. And the secret to drowning it out is what psychologists call a mood inducer.
Mm-hmm.
We need to induce a mood into you this fast. And for me, I play the theme song from the first Rocky film as loud as I can in my head, and I can't hear anything but that music. And that music brings goosebumps to my arms, my hair, and that is what all of us can do to manage and actually start feeling better quite naturally and very quickly by simply finding a piece of music that when you hear the first 15, 16, 17 seconds of it, it lights you up or it calms you down. More so for me, I want to be lit up when I get up on stage. Not crazy American jumping around on stage lit up, but the voice. I want to have the voice. So when Rocky's at the top of the stairs, that's what you're seeing me at when I come out. I'm not running up the stairs. That's backstage. I'm warming up backstage. But when I
Mm.
come out on the stage, my arms are in the air, ready to go. So breathing, posture, and find a piece of music that as soon as you hear it, you're ready.
You're ready. That's like an anchor. We call that an anchor in psychology, where you tell your body exactly how you want to feel, and you practice that, and you tell your body, when I hear that music, that's it. And if you do it often enough, it's a bit like Pavlov's dog.
That's
That's
right.
the way we are.
That's
And
right.
your body will do it. Your
It
body will
surely
do it.
will. Has no choice. Because normally it's tied to something that was cathartic for you in the past. Like maybe you
Mm.
were watching a movie like Chariots of Fire. And when you hear that music, oh my God, you're back on the beach running with the rest of the cats in bare feet, right? So it's like, oh, you feel something with music.
Yeah.
Like you play the piano. Why do you play the piano? Because you want people to feel something and hear something and see. But it's really those feelings. I bet you go for the feelings as well.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm about, and that's what most neurosensitives are about. Most of us just don't know. Since I found out, that I find it so much easier to be who I am, because that's just
Yeah.
I think it's one of the skills that highly sensitives really, really have, and we should use it. We should use it to our advantage, just like you did. So thanks
Thank you.
very, very much for
You're
having been
welcome.
my guest, and sharing some of your
My
secrets
pleasure. My
with
pleasure.
us. And I can only recommend really for people to get in touch with you and read your book, and reach out
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you.
So
It's easy
thanks
to
very
find
much.
me online.
That information will be definitely at in the part of the podcast for you to find.
Okay.
So
Very
thanks
good.
very much, Nathan.
You're welcome. Take care, stay safe, test negative, and be positive. Bye bye.
Bye.